All right, welcome to Helicopter Pilot Study Group number 25. In this study group on Discord, we get together weekly and talk about certain topics. Sometimes we have special presenters, but the purpose for this group primarily is for helicopter pilots of all levels and CFI candidates to work on lesson plans, talk about a task from the ACS, present. This gives a platform for pilots to present and talk about a topic, get some feedback, and it generally progresses into some pretty fun and in-depth conversations about that topic and beyond. So without further ado, Helicopter Pilot Study Group number 25. Today I will be talking about area of operation. Let me share my screen. Area of operation 9, airport from the CFI ACS. Airport and heliport operations. Just important, the evaluator must select at least one task from this area of operation. So you're likely going to hear from the examiner, they're going to pick this, they might build it into the scenario or whatever it may be, or they maybe ask you to teach on one of these tasks. Communications, light signals, and runway lighting systems are something that I've been flying airplanes a lot recently, and these are just some things that I've noticed in the aerodrome that I've wanted to kind of better familiarize myself with. It's figured I'd make a presentation on it, and I've got to do. I got to make lesson plans for all this stuff anyway. So this is a good one. I actually borrowed some of James or Diet Taco's ideas from his outstanding lesson plans that you can find in the VLC group. But let's put this thing together. I'm gonna switch screens here and share this one, and I'll pop it out so we can see it a little bit easier. All right, so this lesson plan, I'm just going to go back to the ACS actually really quick, just to kind of, I found that if we go through the ACS step by step, it really helps generate the lesson plan. This is something that I've done quite a bit with lesson plans that I've been working on. So I'm going to show you how I might do that. And so here in the ACS, really just kind of going step by step through the knowledge, how to obtain appropriate radio frequencies. I like to add some information here that are things that I find valuable that I think students should know. Another reason I actually chose this subject is because I had zero training on this. I just had to figure this out on my own, which is often the case for a Part 61 student, which is also part of the reason why this study group exists, because it can be a lonely place. So we want to provide a platform first for students to kind of learn and engage. So how to obtain an appropriate radio frequency, proper radio comms, procedures, and air traffic control phraseology. There's a lot to that, so we'll just get into the basics. ATC light signal recognition, appropriate use of transponders, loss comms, equipment uses that can cause loss comms, radar assistance, runway status lighting systems, and common errors. I've also talk more about deciding when to declare an emergency and kind of went into the weeds a little bit on that. So let's get started on this sucker. All right. Oh, bump this back up. Share screen, pop out. There we go. All right. So what are VHF radios? That's what we communicate on in aviation. It's it's very high frequency. It's the upper band ranging from 118 megahertz to 136.975 megahertz. And these are basically the frequencies that you'll communicate on. There's strictly voice comms between pilots and ground stations. So you'll have these comms all across the country. Any one of these frequencies can be in play, and we've all used a bunch of them. So there's the lower band of VHF radios between 108 megahertz and 117.95 megahertz, and these are reserved for ground-based nav aids like VORs and ILS, which is all for navigation, for um, instrument lighting systems, right? So the half duplex, so this is a half duplex system, meaning only one person can speak on a frequency at a given time. So there's some protocol, there's some etiquette here. We don't want to just key up the mic and hold the channel open and not communicate anything. We want to be direct, we want to be concise, and we want to be considerate of other users on the frequency. So you may key up. You don't want to key up in between transmissions between, say, tower and an aircraft, waiting for the aircraft to reply. You want to wait for that aircraft to reply, or for the tower to communicate with the aircraft before you key up. Once they're done, you can kind of find an opportunity to sneak in. There are times at busy airports where it's difficult to find that time, but it's okay. You find that gap. You have something you need to say. You do it. Don't be timid to use the radio. Use the radio when you need to. The other option, the other type of system would be a full duplex system, which you can imagine is two-way communications, which would be like a telephone, right? That's just not the communications we use here. We're using half duplex, so two-way communication, but one at a time. So the way radio signals work here, VHF radio signals work, they follow line of sight, so they don't follow the curvature of the Earth. There are times when, if you're low altitude, you may have trouble communicating with potentially center or with towers, and maybe even other aircraft if you're too low. There could be interruptions, right? So terrain could interrupt. Inclement weather at times can interrupt. So there's things that can interrupt transmissions because they're direct line communication. So for instance, if you're on one side if you're too far away and the curvature of the Earth is substantial enough, you won't be able to necessarily communicate. The solution would be to go higher so you can have that direct radio communication. And so comms at time can be an issue. Just a story to relate to. We were a VFR flight following in the Triangle area from Washington Center from northern North Carolina to central Virginia, and we were flying at 1,000 feet AGL, requesting flight following. We had contact with Washington Center initially, but lost comms with them as we were approaching our destination, letting them know that we were going to relinquish flight following. We had no response from, we could not get response from Washington Center. So in a lost comm scenario, we'll talk about that in a second. Like, what do you do in a lost comm scenario? And I'll kind of finish up this story when we get there. So let's talk about how you can gain these frequencies, how you can get these frequencies. There's a couple ways. The two main ways primarily are through the sectional. The sectional points out. No, it doesn't. Sectional points out the CTAF here, 118.6, and then the ATIS is 126.25. You can also, let's look at ForeFlight though, for example. So ForeFlight on our phone or on the web is not as informative as ForeFlight on your phone or on your iPad, just so you guys know. If you find that you're using ForeFlight on the web and you're not getting all the information you're used to getting, it's because ForeFlight web is it's like ForeFlight Lite, basically. So there's some information on there, some critical information that you might see on your iPad that you won't see on the web, and this is a good example of that. So we have two tower frequencies here, 118.6 and then 123.95. And if you're just looking at this at first glance, you might be like, okay, well, which one do I use, right? They're both open from 0600 to 2200. So if you're a relatively new pilot or you're unsure, if this is a new airport somewhere you haven't been, maybe it's a little confusing. The ForeFlight on the phone or on your iPad will actually show you what the difference is between those two towers. So I'm just going to hold up my phone here. Okay, so if you guys can see my phone, it's kind of hard to see, but it says the 118.16 is primary and the 123.95 is secondary. Okay, So another way to confirm that would be to call the ATIS. The ATIS will actually tell you what frequency is being used. So the reason they have a secondary is for busy times when there's approaches or there's a busy, it's extremely busy. They might need that second frequency. And here in the ATIS, I'm just going to read it real quick, or just read the portion where it talks about the which frequency to use. And it doesn't say today on the ATIS. It usually does. I guess they're not using it. They usually say contact tower on 118.6, right? The ATIS doesn't say that today. So anyway, something to be conscious of. Which frequency are you going to connect with when you're in a controlled airspace, or you're even in uncontrolled airspace? It's like a Gulf or an Echo, and you need to communicate with local traffic. A lot of this is based off of controlled airspace. So Charlie's, Delta's, Charlie's, Bravo's, and center airspace, not necessarily aircraft to aircraft. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about moving down through the ACS. It talks about procedures and phraseology. So how does this work, and how do we communicate what is standard phraseology? So the way I was taught, and the way this is right, but who am I talking to? Who am I? Where are we? What info do we have, and what do we want? So that might look like Metro Tower, helicopter, November 5132 Zulu at Corporate Row with information Yankee. We want to depart to the north. And they'll get back with us if we're sitting at the airport. They'll say helicopter 5132 Zulu, north departure approved, stay east of runway 3 at your own risk. So what does that mean, right? We respond north departure approved, stay east of runway 3 at our own risk. Always finish with your call sign 5132 Zulu. So what does that look like? On our map here, I borrowed from James's awesome descriptions on how to fly in some crazy airspace in California. Just a little quick satellite shot of what this might look like. Here's runway 3 and 12. Here is Corporate Row where the helicopter sits. This is north. We're just going to pick up and depart to the north, staying east of runway 3, right? So once we're out here, now we've departed at our own risk. We want to read back those full instructions. And if we're unsure, most importantly here, it's okay to ask. Say, we're departing to the north. Do you want us to stay across, stay east of 287, or whatever some of the other markings are. And usually they will tell you, or what some other visual waypoints are, usually they will tell you what they want from you. But once you're clear to depart that airspace, you depart to the north. Generally, that's it. You can ask for a frequency change, but generally you're good to go unless there's some other traffic that they want you to be aware of, right? So say we're coming back into the airport. We need to let them know where we are. Same thing. Who am I talking to? Who you are, where you are, what information you have, and what are we trying to accomplish here? So Metro Tower, helicopter, November 5132 Zulu. We're 6 miles to the north. The Delta is a 5-mile ring. We generally do some practice in an airport just a mile away from the airspace, so we might hit them up right outside the airspace. 6 miles to the north, we have information Zulu. It's changed, and we want to set down a Corporate Row. And they'll say, great, helicopter 5132 Zulu, Corporate Row approved. Stay north of 30 right, cross 3 midfield at your own risk, right? So we'll read that back. Corporate Row approved. Stay north of 30 right, cross 3 midfield, our own risk, 5132 Zulu. So if they were to get back to us, for example, and say, helicopter making last call ident, that would mean that we are not approved to enter the Delta because we didn't hear our tail number, and they want us to do an ident. We'll talk about that in a second. But what this might look like is on the satellite image, we're coming from the north. We'll kind of swoop in, cross runway 3. It's not quite midfield, but they know that. And then we're going to run over this flight school. We're going to fly over all these airplanes and then down this little gap here. And we're going to set down right in here somewhere. And this is where we're going to set down at Corporate Row. So again, full readback instructions, confirm our tail number to enter the Delta. And if they were to pause during all of this and say helicopter making the last call ident, let's talk a little bit about what that means. So Our helicopters have transponders and they have radios, VHF radios. A transponder transmits position, altitude, and identity to ATC and surrounding aircraft, right? So if you're sitting in your foreflight and you see aircraft, you see little blue triangles moving around. Those are aircraft with transponders that they can see you. It shows your tail number. It shows their tail number. You guys can kind of communicate. And there's times maybe when you hear a helicopter or hear an airplane asking another helicopter or airplane if they're up or what their intentions are. And I'm a big advocate for that. If you see someone and you're not sure what they're doing and you're looking at them on the map and it looks like they're right in front of you or blah, 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 there's nothing wrong with saying, hey, November 44297 Juliet, are you up? Or what are your intentions? And then obviously do your right kind of moves. If you need to get out of the way, move to the right. But that's part of the benefit of having these transponders. We can see who each other are and communicate with them. What we're showing here on that screen is the numbers 1200. What that means, that's a universal code for visual flight rules. If you're squawking 1200, squawk means if you have the numbers shown up on your transponder. If you're squawking 1200, that means you're a VFR aircraft. You can get a squawk code from ATC for flight following that will change that 1200. They'll ask you to change it to 1247, for example. You're still VFR, but that just gives you a specific number that pops up on screen that shows you that you're squawking that specific number. They can see you. So we'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute. So what does that ident mean, right? So you hit that ident button. If ATC asks you, helicopter making last call, ident, you don't have to respond on the radio. When you hit ident, that is your response. They'll see on their scope your helicopter, your tail number, your altitude. It'll pop up and it'll flash. It'll give them a nice bright bulb so they can see who you are. And there may be a lot of traffic where they're like, I don't have time to figure out where this helicopter is. He's 6 miles to the north. I've got like 12 planes out there to the north. I don't know which one it is. Ident. And then it'll immediately ping you. They know exactly who you are, and then they can respond. Helicopter 5321 Zulu, cleared for corporate row, stay north of 30 right, cross 3 midfield. And then you respond. Clear for corporate row, stay north of 30 right, cross 3 midfield, November 3152 Zulu. Oh, man. Great. So what else do these squawk codes do for us? What's the point of so these other things? So for IFR flying, if you're flying instrument, they will give you a specific squawk code that could be anywhere between 1300 and 7600. Is that right? 7677, I think, or 7477. 8s and 9s aren't used. So so if we were to for example, hit these buttons and make it say 7500, that would immediately indicate to ATC on their scope that we are being hijacked. And in a helicopter, that's really not something that we will experience. However, you still need to know this. 7500 would be a hijack code. Squawk 75 if you need a 45 is sort of the acronym there, or the phraseology there, or joke, I guess. What is that called? It's a reminder phrase. What are those called? Phraseology. I don't remember. So if you need a 45 because you're being hijacked, you squawk 75. A common one that we very well may use would be 7600. That's an emergency code for your lost comms failure. So if you are flying and they see that your tail number pops up on the scope and it's popping 7600, that means you have a communications error. They know that. So that would be 76, need a fix. Another way to remind that. And then another one, if you are in an emergency, you have engine failure, out of fuel, you have a mechanical problem. If you have the time, you squawk 7700. Squawking 7700 will immediately pop up on their scope that that aircraft, that end number has an emergency, and they will contact you. These are not to be taken lightly. Do not practice these without them actually being used. Just trust that your transponder will work. Great. So let's go back to 7600. Need a fix. 76 need a fix. If we have lost comms, if our radios don't work, our transmitter fails, which is entirely possible, what can we do? First thing we want to do is we want to ensure that we're on the right frequency, right? Make sure our volume is turned up. Make sure we're on the correct radio. A lot of aircraft will have two radios. Make sure that the squelch is off, right? So make sure that it's toned so you can hear incoming traffic. Check your headset and your mic connections. I mean, we could easily have failures in there. I mean, those headsets get bumped around, they get loose wires, could pop out of the jack up top. And if we have a second radio, try that second radio. And then a lot of my airplane friends, in their flight bag, they all bring a spare handheld radio. I haven't seen that so much in helicopters. I'd like to talk about that with you guys a little bit. But yes, carry a spare handheld. And then we're going to immediately squawk 76. And if we need to land in controlled airspace, what we would do is we would circle outside of that airspace or inside that airspace, close and far away from traffic, but closer to the tower. If we're seeing they're not seeing us, we can start moving in a little bit, but we want to stay outside of that airspace if we can. Kind of circle and squawk 76 and hope we can see some flashes from the tower. And what the tower will do is they will send in this big spotlight that will flash red, green, and any combination of those two colors, or white, not in flight. It will be green or red, and then that we'll be able to recognize those signals as direction from tower without being able to communicate. These are extremely rare. I think a lot of DPs don't necessarily talk about this, but I've heard of DPs that are like, what are the 8 light gun signals? What does red and green mean? So it's important to know that it's there. It's important to know that it's available. A lot of times we get cards. The ALPA will give you a card, or there's a lot of organizations that'll give you a card with little light gun signals on. Sometimes it's on it's in for flight. I mean, there's ways to get this information if you need it. But essentially, yeah, green, you're good. Red, you're not so good, right? So just wait. But you see a green light's flashing at you, you're good to go. If you see a green light, steady green, it means come on in. So, but there's a reality here. If you're outside of that airspace and you don't have your radio, we'll just use the Bluetooth in our headsets. Likely use our cell phone and make a phone call. That's a very common solution for this sort of problem. And it's worth knowing that that's available, and it's perfectly okay to do that, to call tower and say, hey, I'm the aircraft that squawks 76. I don't have comms direct, can you vector me in or give me a clearance? And they will. And they'll appreciate that phone call too. I can almost guarantee it. Okay, so next in the ACS, it talks about radar assistance. So what does that mean exactly? So radar assistance for aircraft generally it provides radar identification. It provides traffic information. They can provide traffic information to you. Any safety alerts they will provide. A lot of times if requested, but if not, if it's you guys will have to remind me which one of the safety alerts are not required. There's one in particular that's not required to disclose, but one of them, like a couple of them are, I don't remember. Navigation assistance or vectors, so they can kind of vector you through, and we're established sequencing assistance. So if you're getting in line with other aircraft to land, they can help you sequence in. So you're going to see this at Class D, C, and B, and then center controllers. So back to VFR flight following. If you are doing these cross countries and you're asking for flight following, they're going to give you that specific squawk code, right? So when we were flying into Virginia, we had 1,000 feet. We were letting Washington Center know that we were canceling our flight following, but we were getting nothing back from them. So we did what you're supposed to do in lost comms, is continue to communicate even though you can't necessarily hear them, assuming that they can hear you. And it's a good thing we did. because we communicated all the way through, let them know that we had landed at our airport, and then once we did, and we had switched over to the CTAF for that airport, and once we had landed, the manager at the FBO got on the CTAF and told us that Washington Center had called them, had heard our communications, and had canceled off our following, and they thanked us. And I was like, I thought we were in trouble, but we did what we were supposed to do, and Washington Center actually helped us out all the way through. We just didn't know it. And so part of that is, this is straight line communications, right? We're at 1,000 feet, and center controllers generally are communicating with aircraft at 35,000 feet, 20-some thousand feet, right? So way up in the atmosphere, and we're way down low. We just didn't have communications with them. They could hear us, but we could not hear them. We just didn't have a powerful enough radio. So that was a good lesson. So keep in mind that communications is not guaranteed for low-level flight. And even though we are asking for radar assistance or we're asking for help from tower, just as responsible as pilots, we still have to be responsible and consider terrain and obstacle clearance, wire and tower hazards. They're not going to be able to help us with these things necessarily. Suitable forced landing areas, weather conditions along the intended route, that is our responsibility. Wake turbulence and water wash exposure, that is something that we're responsible with, especially in aerodromes. Tower's not necessarily going to tell us. They could tell us to wait for heavy aircraft or keep an eye out for rotor wash or for wake turbulence from heavies, but that's something that we need to be diligent about. And then, of course, avoid runway incursions. In the aerodrome, avoid other aircraft, vehicles, and persons. We're responsible for seeing avoid. So what would happen should we need to declare an emergency? And we need to squawk 7700. So radar assistance can be a lifesaver in double IMC in conditions, right? So if we actually accidentally flew into double IMC, first thing we need to do is to aviate. We need to get control of the aircraft, make sure that we are oriented within our instruments, eyes on the instruments, focus on that. Then we want to navigate, make sure that we're going the direction we want to go and we're at the altitude we want to be and the airspeed we want to be. Then if we can while in the clouds, we can squawk 7700. If there's a co-pilot with us, they can squawk 7700. And then they would tune to AirGuard frequency 121.5. And this basically puts out that you're declaring an emergency. You can talk this over AirGuard and you get a hold of anybody who's listening. And often a center or tower will be able to hear you. But essentially we're squawking 7700. And then what will happen here is once we declare that emergency, and if they recognize where we are and who we are, then they can start giving us vectors and telling us where to go in a condition where we can't necessarily see. And they may ask us to punch above the clouds. They could give us weather information. They could give us ceilings. They could tell us, to descend or what's near us. So we have a lot of options. You're talking with somebody that's helping you guide through a scenario where you're otherwise blind. They're your eyes, essentially, when you can't see. So squawking 7700 in double IMC can be a lifesaver. But just assume basically if you get into double IMC in a helicopter, you're going to die. So these are things you can do to avoid that, but you're pretty much going to die. That's a helicopter without, that is not IMC rated or IFR rated. So anyway, engine failures, mechanical problems, in-flight emergencies, these are times when we might squawk 7700. The reality is we fall at 1,500 feet a minute in an auto rotation with an engine failure. Generally, we're 500 feet above the ground. We don't have time to get on the radios necessarily or squawk 7700. So granted, if you do have that opportunity or if there is somebody else in the helicopter that can help you do that, it is still beneficial to do it even though we only have a few seconds before we're on the ground. In case we land, we survive, but we hit hard and we need assistance, maybe we're injured, squawking that 7700 and talking with guard will help first responders respond to us sooner. We do have ELTs in some aircraft too. Helicopters aren't required, airplanes are, but some helicopters just don't have them, and that's perfectly fine. So the benefit here is of declaring an emergency is the controller prioritizes your aircraft. So in that airspace, you are priority under all circumstances. Other users of the frequency often discontinue comms. They stop talking to clear the airways because remember we're half duplex system. We're a half duplex system, so if there's other people on the radio talking, the controller's not getting through emergency information, and you're not going to be able to talk with tower and get that emergency information. So generally, everybody shuts up during an emergency. If any of you have experienced an emergency while in flight, whether in your own aircraft or other aircraft, I sure would like to hear about it. And then other pilots can offer assistance often. So if they may be able to point out some areas or point out some things that you can't see that they can, or they know the area better than you do and can kind of guide you. Oh, there's a lake just to the left, but just past that lake there's a giant open field to the west, right? And that might be really helpful, right? Oh shit, I see the lake. Cool, open field to the left. Cool, thank you. Or don't move, or don't go to the north of that lake. There's high tension wires. Turn to the left for your emergency landing, whatever it may be. So other pilots in the air might be able to provide assistance, and hopefully if they do have that information, they do provide it, and that does happen quite a bit. The ACS wrong thing. The ACS asks for this, so we're going to talk about it, even though these are pretty rare. Runway safety lights. Only about 20 major airports in the U.S. actually have RWSL installations. They're essentially red lights on the runway to help kind of direct you and just kind of forewarn you about unsafe scenarios. Really help mitigate runway incursions. These are just enhanced, essentially hold short lines and stop lights on the runway. And they're certainly valuable for us to know about, but they're primarily more used for helicopters with wheels or when you're hover taxiing through an aerodrome, but generally they ask us to just kind of pick up and get the hell out of there. They don't send us, especially at busy airports like this, we're not going to be seeing this as often, but it's important to know that sometimes there's these runway safety stoplights that are here to kind of help direct ground traffic. We don't spend a lot of time on the ground, but that's what they're for. All right, so that's essentially my presentation about Task B, and I would like to wrap it up and open it up for discussion. Anybody has anything they want to comment? A few questions I had for you guys. Anybody ever experience in-flight emergencies? Either they're listening to it over the radio or communicating it, and then a few other things. But yeah, I'll open it up. Any thoughts, ideas, questions?
Great job, John. So real quick, we had a radio failure coming into to land at Spruce Creek, just south of Daytona. For some reason we couldn't get out, so we swapped 7600, landed, and then we got back down on the ground. We got a call, ATC. We were in flight following, so they were already calling by the time that we tested in. And they asked what happened. Told them it was a radio failure. All good. So that's my 7600 story.
Nice. So they didn't. You came in and landed without talking to them, and they called you to figure out why you didn't communicate with them.
Yeah, they called us to because we 1 second I was working, and then very close to the field to stop working the radio. And I remember my instructor, like he was my helicopter instructor, but we were in an airplane, we were in RV4, and he started getting a little fixated on the radio, like trying to troubleshoot the radio and do all this stuff.
Right.
And I say, hey, just go ahead, squawk 7600, and it's fine. We'll make sure we clear the field and make sure nobody's coming at us, and land and it's gonna be okay. And then by the time that we got the aircraft in the hangar, somebody was, hey, they're calling for you, you know. So
Yeah.
yeah, we had a radio failure. So
So it was
um,
almost, it was too, you're too far along in approach to look for light gun signals, and it was not, it didn't make sense to call because you were on approach and you were about to land anyway.
well, yeah, the Spruce Creek Flying is a private community, so it's an
Ah,
uncontrolled field anyway.
got
So,
it.
but we were on the line with Daytona,
Oh,
getting
got it.
flight following. So since we never canceled
Right.
that,
Right.
that's why they were looking for us.
Got
So
it. Yeah, that's cool. Isn't that cool how attentive they are? Obviously,
yeah,
I mean, it's part of the job, but it sure is appreciated. Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah, good story. Squawk 76, man. Nice. What you got here, Jay? A great resource for FAA runway safety program, runway safety pilot simulator. Cool.
It has a couple of animated replays of non-towered ops on communications.
Mm-hmm.
It's airplane focused as a lot of these things are,
Yeah.
but it gives you like these. Maybe it was probably built during COVID when there was a bunch of people who didn't know what to do with themselves, but they have these little Microsoft Flight Simulator animations of stuff. So that's another thing. Great job, man. I really like the imagery that you had. Like for when we talk about ident, I remember a lot of people only hear that for the first time till it's happening live. They haven't, been taught on what the ident button is and things like that. So that was really good there.
Thank you.
I really like those imagery. I had some little bits and pieces. One of the things in the ACS is, and this is common across all of the tasks in the ACS, is that it talks about common errors.
Mm-hmm.
It says, one of the very last knowledge items is common errors related to this task.
Mm-hmm.
So as the instructor, you're supposed to know what those are,
Mm-hmm.
and you can guess. But there's if you the old PTS for the instructor certificate lists them out.
Hmm.
So if you can get hold and you can Google and find the PTS version, I'll
Oh,
just
wow.
copy those and paste those into the chat right now. But, there's like 4 or 5 items on there, so you can't go wrong using the PTS
Yeah.
to help build your common errors on all of these tasks. That's one of the
Mm-hmm.
things I was going to say. What else do I have? Oh, you talked about when you talk about light gun signals.
Yeah.
I think at one point you were saying, if you had lost comms and you were talking about where you would circle and stuff. I think at one point, maybe I think you said outside of the airspace. I would say that's probably not going to work if you think about it, because you're probably about 5 miles out, and if they're a visual tower, they're not going to pick you up visually for about 2 miles, and you probably won't see that light either unless it's nighttime. I think the preference is above traffic pattern altitude and circling above the center of the airport, and then you're out of the way for the approaches and departures and the downwinds. But then you're in a position where they can get the light gun signals out to you, and also them see you. I mean, the reality is if you have electronics working, if you have the transponder working, center or another facility would have notified them if they didn't already know that they have a lost comm aircraft in the area.
Right.
But let's assume that you lost all electrical equipment. That's where they're going to see something and go, "Oh, what's he doing up there? He's not."
Yeah.
And then another sort of related thing to that is, if you haven't done it, ask tower, "Hey, do you have time for light gun signals on this inbound?" For them to practice, for them and for you to see the light guns during the
Great
day
idea.
and during the night. And
Yeah.
surprising how not so bright it is during the day.
Right. I've never seen them. Do you
Yeah,
think?
and that's another. I don't know if you've done this before, and that's another great thing to try and get people to do is do it, or try and get a tower tour or a tour with a Tracon or a tour with a center is nearby,
Totally.
but to see what the equipment's like, and then talk to them about how best to communicate. But usually it's just, hey, we're inbound for landing or we're inbound for power work. Do you have time for light gun signals? Read the room. If it's if it's crazy, you're not going to ask for that. And on a similar thing, another good thing to try is when you talk about radar assistance.
Mm-hmm.
Part of it is in the soup, and you need vectors to VMC or you need vectors for an approach, but it also ties into a lost pilot, right? So part of your students training pre-study cross country is, well, what if you got lost? Who would you speak to? What frequency? And one of the things I encourage our instructors to do is if they get on with center, because center covers the airspace down to the surface near us, there's no trach on here. Just say, if it's not looking busy, if you have time for vectors for an airport for a lost pilot scenario. And they like doing that training too. It's all about scenarios and trying to, if they have time, then they'll say, all right, airport, 1 o'clock, 7 miles. Let me know when you have insight. Things like that. But yeah, really great. I think you hit all the bullet points there.
Yeah, that's great.
Trying
That
to see if
actually
there's anything
reminds
else I
me
can
of
get.
something I thought about adding that I didn't add as I went through this. It was on my mind, but you just reminded me. So sometimes they will call you in and they will provide separation, right? So if they ask you to, they may ask you to join a left downwind for 30, and they'll call your base, right? So there's times when they will give you instruction, and that's not something I mentioned, that they will call your base and then that you're clear for the option, whatever that option may be. So yeah, that's, I think when you're talking about vectors for a lost pilot scenario, that's what kind of brought up my mind for, they might say join two, visual landmark when you get there, contact tower, or when you're a certain amount of miles out, contact tower, or approach midfield, or whatever it is, and then join a downwind. So I need to talk about that too.
One more thing, again, across the entire spectrum of teaching lessons, is those risk management sections.
Mm-hmm.
If you can feed those into your lesson as well.
Mm-hmm.
And, with this particular one, I think what I'm looking at is the use of non-standard phraseology.
Right.
And you can kind of tie that back into the very start is, why is this all so important? Why can't we just say what we think when we think it and just talk to the ATC like someone down the street? And the importance of standard phraseology, but also sometimes the importance of just plain language. If something doesn't fit a standard situation, just speak plainly. I need to do this. How can I do this? Or what do you mean? I don't understand.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I kind of wanted to allude to that when I said if you're unsure, just ask. And that's a really good point, because that was on my mind, but I didn't bring it up. And I have heard at times, as we all have, pilots just say, "I didn't understand. Can you say that again?" Just straight up. I mean, there's no aviation. That's just pure.
Say again.
Yep, say again. I'm just confused. What was that? And that's perfectly okay.
You can say again slower. You can say again slower. I think that is a standard phraseology. Say again slower.
Say again slower. Yeah. I thought like people don't understand, like maybe don't know like what Wilco means or whatever. So I think there's this discussion can kind of evolve, of course, but that's part of the training, right? Yeah.
That's a good, it talks about references the pilot controller glossary, right?
Mm-hmm.
That is a good way to introduce the pilot controller glossary into this lesson, which is a couple of quick examples.
Right.
For example, great one, Wilco.
Right.
And you don't have to go through the entire A to Z, of course, but that was a really great way to introduce the resource to the student with a good example.
Yeah. What was that called again? That's in the AIM, right? And it's called
pilot controller glossary, or PCG.
Yeah.
Hey, John.
Yo.
Hey, John and Jay.
Yo.
I got a little surprise real quick.
What?
So hold on 1 sec.
Is it Christmas?
Yeah, kind of. Hey, how you guys doing? It's Jerry Trimble here.
Jerry.
Oh, no
How
way.
you doing?
Hey, you guys staying out of trouble?
The legend himself.
No, I don't know about that.
Yeah, well, everyone knows your name, Jerry. You don't know mine, but we all know yours.
Yeah. Well, we've been working here with Jay on some long line stuff.
Oh man, lucky guy.
Trying to turn him into a long line pilot here, so he can go out and haul Christmas trees for us.
Ah, what a lucky guy, man. That's awesome.
Where are you guys located at?
I'm in Denver.
Perfect.
I'm in Bend, Oregon, Jerry.
Oh yeah, Bend. All right. Yeah. You're over with Leading Edge?
That's right.
What do you do for Leading Edge?
I'm the director of training there.
Oh, wow. Okay. Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Came out to you in August doing that FAST team webinar on that seminar on
that's right.
with the
Yeah.
Robinson Day.
Yeah.
Morgan. Good. How's things going over there?
Good. Yeah, very good. Yeah. It's
Yeah,
always busy.
we went over to Redmond and we saw one of your pea green helicopters flying around, and I go, "That's leading edge," you know.
They stand
I
out,
think
don't
it's
they?
technically it's neon green. It's not.
Oh, neon green. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Not pea
Well,
green,
It
so
perfect.
works.
be clear. Well,
Well,
Jay's in good
good.
hands.
Well, yeah, if you get over this way, stop in.
You don't have
Oh,
to
Jerry,
tell-
I was thinking, how
tell
can
me
we rope
twice.
you into doing a presentation with this group?
No, I don't know what you'd want me to give you a presentation
How
on.
about long lining?
Yeah, we could do that. We just do the basic stuff, but
That's
yeah,
fine.
sure.
There's a lot of us who have no long lining experience that dream really are looking forward to the day that we start to get it. So, yeah, any
Yeah.
information that you can drop on us for that would be greatly appreciated.
Okay. Okay. It's just like I don't know if you guys know Ron Gustafson, but he always says it's
Oh
just
yeah.
a peso problem. Just a peso problem. So it's expensive.
Just a peso
But
problem. Yeah, a lot of pesos.
yeah, we'd be happy to talk to you about that. All right. Well, I'm going to scoot, but nice to meet you. And I'll let Jay set something up if he wants. Okay.
That's great. What an
Perfect.
honor. Thanks for
Have a
jumping
good
in.
night. Okay. Bye.
Later.
How
Bye,
about
say.
that? Jay, well, that was a nice treat, brother. That was cool.
Yeah, I figured.
What are you long lining in? What helicopters?
The 44.
Cool, man.
Yeah.
Man, you're just getting all sorts of great experience out there.
Oh, yeah.
Good for you. Stoked. Great. Yeah. Well, we'll take you up on that Jerry Trimble long lining lesson. That would be awesome. We can make it a fast lesson too, and try to get some wings credit for it. That'd be really good.
Get with Melanie and get it all worked out. You know, that'd be great.
Yeah. Actually, I just became a rep. Everybody.
Oh, congratulations,
Yep,
bro!
yep,
Look
yep.
at you.
Yeah. So
You get
yeah, I'll get just got to finish one more training thing or whatever. But yeah, it's exciting. She's already got some plans and things we're gonna do, so it's good. Okay, back briefly to the lesson plan. There are things that that controllers and towers will tell you regarding safety alerts, but there's some that they won't. And I think it's one of them was special VFR. If you request special VFR, if it's a special VFR condition, then you'd have to request that clearance as opposed to them just giving it to you. So I know there's that one, but isn't there something else that they won't tell you about? They'll tell you about thunderstorms, but not volume of precipitation. Is that right? Something along those lines? Is that ringing a bell to anybody?
I don't know. I don't know about that, but I do know
Or
that
not? What
controllers, I've heard it personally, will elude the best they can because it's all being recorded.
Yeah.
I've gone into Redmond years and years ago,
Yeah.
and I'm trying to get in, and they're like, it's very special weather here. Do you have any special requests?
Oh, that's great. That's great.
I was too green to know what they were talking
What
about.
they
They're
were
like, oh, the
talking
field's
about.
gone IFR, you're not coming in.
Yeah. Right. Right. Does that ring a bell with anybody about they'll tell you that there is precipitation or but they won't tell you what kind. I don't know. Maybe that was a written question.
I've definitely heard. I think it might be a threshold or something, because I've definitely heard them, talk about reported or what they're seeing in terms of
Yeah.
a certain level of intensity.
Right.
But maybe they only trigger at a certain level where they would talk about it,
Right.
or without prompting, I guess.
Part of the reason I really wanted to talk about this too is because I've been flying airplanes recently, and I'm not afraid to admit it. I'm okay with it. I know it's a little bit blasphemous, but what it does is it keeps me in the air and keeps me really fresh. And I was talking with Tio before the class, like one thing I really like flying helicopters with the engine out. I think it's fun. It's hard. It requires a lot of attention to detail and focus, and it's very precise skill. And I like it. I'm not the best at it, but I really like it, and I want to become really good at it. But I landed an airplane the first time I tried it with the engine out, like maybe one of my best landings ever. It's just not that hard in comparison, you know? But that's not the point. The point is I wanted to spend more time talking with controllers. I wanted to spend more time in controlled airspace in getting instructions from towers. I'm going to start flying a lot of IFR coming up, getting approach clearances, etc. Filing. I mean, those are all things that we can obviously do in helicopters for sure. It's just we can do it. You can do it in an airplane. It's far less expensive, and it's really convenient here. We have some Charlies and some Deltas and the Bravo, and so I'm trying to get into those airspace as much as I can, and these little GA airplanes are a good way to do that. So that was really the ultimate decision for trying to get into, or for trying to just become more familiar and well versed in the ATC world. So a lot of my flying has been no towers, no towered airports, which is fine. And
I have a question regarding radio failures and such. This, I don't know if you might have mentioned this, Jay. I was crossing a big hill and I got out of reception. I had a radio failure in the car. Wondering, because, I remember reading also in the frame what you were saying too, how you stay up above the pattern and, waiting for those light signals. But what I don't know if you mentioned or not is, would you prefer or would you choose to go to airfield that is uncontrolled, that is less busy, or do you prefer going to somewhere where you can get that clearance and get that extra buffer of there's no one around?
Yeah, that is a great question. There's so many factors involved in answering that. If I was going to go into Bend on one of its busiest days, I would, if I was going to go into Bend, an uncontrolled airport with some of the busiest traffic in Oregon, you got to weigh that up. Would that be better? I mean, it's my home base too, so I probably would feel pretty familiar and comfortable doing that. But if I had a choice between the towered airport to the right and the uncontrolled airport, which is busy as hell, to the left, and I don't know either of them that well, I would probably go to the controlled, to be honest. If I was really worried about traffic, it also depends on the nature of the emergency, the amount of fuel on board. So if you've got electrical problems and you're concerned about, are we going to be starting to deal with electrical fire and all those things, that might also affect the urgency of the situation. At least knowing, I know Bend traffic pretty well, so I know where the aircraft are going to be. I know what altitudes they could be. I could probably get underneath them and land direct to the ramp and have nothing to do with much of the traffic. But if I was going into somewhere I was a little bit less familiar with, all those things would have to weigh into the equation. I don't know. I feel like one thing you do know about going into a towered airport, especially if your transponder is still working, is if you're squawking 7600, you know that the tower knows you're coming. And so they can separate the traffic. Right? It might be an inconvenience to everyone, but that's, forget about that. This is, on a certain level of emergency to some degree. So at least they will be able to push stuff out of the way. They make eyes on you. They give you the green signal, easy peasy. Whereas you go into a really busy hornet's nest, like Bend or another airport like that you don't know. Let's say you're just so distracted looking for traffic, you lose track of your airspeed or whatever it is. I don't know. Yeah, that's a good one. If it's a quiet, sleepy little airport, if it's a quiet, sleepy little airport, probably go that way. Probably would. But you also have to think about, what does it mean to get maintenance? Is this something that's going to need to be worked on before I leave again? All that. There's so many factors. Good question, though. Scenario.
Yeah, I've had 3 radio experiences, let's say. Only one of them was kind of real. It was just a little bit of rust that WD-40 fixed. And the other 2 were just pilot error. The whole, like, I was getting into Portland airspace. I had just contacted them, waiting for a squad code. And just before they spoke of the squad code, I had just a tiny bit adjusted the radio. Lesson learned. Just adjusted it, just like a millimeter or what I felt, which was a little bit, and I had completely silenced them. And then after a while, we're like, hey, they're not calling us squawk, like, what's going on? So we raised up the radio and we asked them. They were pissed because, I had just canceled them out. And another time, my first drum solo, I had plugged in the headset on the wrong one. So just so many times I feel like those are just pilot error.
That headset jack problem. All the dummy checks that John mentioned, going through all those things, but wrong jack wasn't on the list. But yeah, that's certainly something to watch out for.
No, that wasn't. I'm about to add it to the list. I guarantee you, your student won't make that mistake, Tio. Your students.
I went into an airport just a couple of days ago. I was in an internal flight with one of our instructors on our recurrent training, and the frequency was 1227 was the correct frequency, and they'd somehow put in 127, so the wrong frequency. And we're heading in, and we see this plane. We're like, well, what's up with this jackass? He's not making radio calls. Well, wow. We were the jackass. So I think that's another little trigger. You see traffic that's not making radio calls, just make sure you're not the one that's not making radio calls.
Very true.
We were the jackass.
Very true. It's easy to say that too. What are they doing? Why aren't they communicating? And then you're like, oh shit.
Yeah.
We actually had that cherry drawing, so our normal frequencies, fingers, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. Somehow there must have been a switch in there, and it kept switching to the airport frequency 1 to 8.7, what have you. Your common frequency, and we kept trying to communicate with our guy. Normally you communicate with a person in the truck, and they'll tell you where to go, what road to do. And so we had to pretty much just kind of, he poked his hand out and point me. Hopefully, well, at least there's a ground reference there, but and then I realized, I'm like, you're in the wrong frequency. I don't know how that happened because we didn't switch it. So it must have been the button that you had, or maybe the radio was switching itself. But yeah.
I have a FAA plug your ears. I have a slight predisposition to potential dyslexia when it comes to numbers. I think it's self-diagnosed. I don't think it's real, of course, but I do punch numbers in wrong and read them wrong. Like end numbers, tail numbers, I will just look right through it and read completely wrong numbers. And I'm in different airplanes every time I'm going up recently, so it's like even more complicated. But what I've started is I just kind of have a quick little reference card. I think I have on my 4Flight 2, I have notes in my notepad of some like important ones that I have handy. And I think in a helicopter, I remember like first getting in the helicopter and trying to fly the damn thing and change frequencies. It's a skill. It's a skill, and it takes time to learn that and get it right. Especially, you got to look it up, you got to memorize it, you got to put it in. It's a lot easier. You take your hands off the damn controls. You're like, oh shit, I don't know.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think generally you're much more at ease flying an airplane. You have a lot more time and to put into avionics or situational awareness. Generally, I think it's a harder aircraft to fly. I was just thinking of a couple of things real quick. I have a quick video I'll show you in a second if I can share this with you.
Please.
The other one was I kind of back to what you were saying about numbers and getting the numbers wrong. In 2009, there was a midair on the Hudson River between an A-Star and a Piper. They were in the low corridor, like the sightseeing corridor. And the Piper pilot, he was supposed to change to a tower frequency 127.85, and he put 127.8 in, and he even said that back to the controller who missed it. And we're talking 0.05 difference, of course. I mean, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't work. And he's on the wrong frequency, and 60 seconds later, he hits the helicopter that was in the same area on the other frequency they should have been on. So it's really important. I do a lot of with the internal training. If I help the pilot out by reaching down to do the frequency change, I point and read back the frequency to them. So we're on bend frequency 1230.0, right, 123.0. And it's there's this whole thing about pointing and paying attention to and reading back, and then hoping that you or the other pilot says, well, why are you on 0.3? We're supposed to be 0.0. So that's another kind of tip, especially if you're flying with a crew, but even if you're flying on your own. And then, anyway, there's a few things, but
yeah, I just had that.
Let's see if I can show you this.
I
video
really
real
like
quick.
that, Jay. Real quick, I was going to say, so I like that. I remember when, in firefighting and EMS, they would do that with drugs. When you were handing drugs to the medic. It's true, because you don't want to push the wrong drug.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I'm sure we're talking about medical drugs. Okay, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah. We call them
paramedics.
Paramedics. But when you're handing out anything that's in a vial, you're pointing to them and you're reading off exactly what it is. And I think that's I'm gonna steal that from you. I'm gonna start using that if I ever be change your frequency. That's excellent. I love that.
Same.
Yeah. I'll show you real quick this video. See if I can share this with you. This is
I'll stream
a Seattle Center radar screen. Just to kind of see what they're seeing. It's just a couple of minutes. It's actually one of our aircraft screwing up on this particular replay, but let me just share it with you real quick. We have meetings with Seattle Center quite regularly, and they, as part of our training, they would show us if something, if we'd screwed up a little bit, and then we'd play it back at our instructor meetings and see who screwed. Well, not who screwed up, but how we screwed up. But can you guys see that? Can you see that screen right now?
I
with
have it
a radar.
Yep. We sure do.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see. Can you hear this if I play it?
No, you might have to
Did you
take your
hear anything
headset off, or disconnect your headset.
Let me do that real quick. Hang on.
That's what happened with me and the peak
The
Gillies.
peak Gillies.
Yeah. Lesson learned.
You hear that?
Try again.
You look cool though.
No, we can't hear it. I'd really like to.
No. Well, you get to see, at least you get to see some of the stuff they get to see, and some of the icons and stuff. You hear me now on the headset at least?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know how to make that work for the sound, but
Are you
know, this is kind of
Is your if you
it's pretty-
disconnect?
Is that a private video or?
No, I can put that with the group. So this is just to show you what a center screen looks like. You can see these. Maybe you can see these dashed gray lines. Those are minimum vectoring altitudes. It might be hard for you to see on the screen there.
Kind of see them, yeah.
Maybe I can make this a little bit bigger. All right, one go bigger. And you can see, for example, 075 and 060. So that's the lowest they can vector aircraft in those sectors. You can see there's a white ring, which is a NOTAM for unmanned aerial system at or below 3,500, I believe. And then you can see some V tags, or what they call V tags. You can see these little V's off to the right-hand side. And you can also see some that look a bit like an I shape on the top left and also down the right. Those are just altitudes. It's not IFR and VFR necessarily, but it's certain altitudes. It switches from an I to a V and vice versa. And this traffic, they don't have the tail numbers. And then they have these aircraft here, these two here, with tail numbers, they're either because they're on an IFI flight plan or they may be in traffic conflict. And you'll see in a second when they start flashing, they're in traffic conflict. And it goes back to what John was saying about when they ident, when you press ident, it takes your little V tag and actually it brightens up and it shows them the extra information that they don't see. And then you can see this aircraft off to the in this particular replay. You won't hear the audio, and that's not really important. But there's an aircraft in the top left which is on approach into Redmond, and then off to this right there's a 552 Echo that is not paying attention on the frequency there, and it causes a bit of a conflict. I'll just play it for you to see. He's asking if 552 that just departed Bend, are you monitoring? Trying to notify this airliner that there's potential traffic.
Wow.
And you'll see in a second, this one's already flashing for traffic, and then this one, that's why these two are flashing, because they've got traffic conflicts.
Wow.
And then this one's going to start flashing in a second too. I just think a controller job is so stressful. I just could not do it.
They must love it.
So, Jay, I have somewhat of a confession/learning experience here.
Is that your aircraft?
No, I don't think so. But I did a very similar thing right on my cross-country solo for private. You know, all the stress of getting out of Bend and getting down to Sun River, and then like you get that kind of quiet period where I'm supposed to be monitoring 12615, and I had squawked 1245. I thought I had put in Seattle Center's frequency. I did not. It was like 12651 or whatever. Something wrong.
Back to this dyslexia that we all suffer from as pilots. Apparently. Yeah,
absolutely. And I remember during that portion being like, oh, it's quiet. I didn't see any traffic, but I remember thinking, oh, it's really quiet today. Like I'm used to hearing stuff here. And whatever in my brain didn't click. But now I have this between like radio use between like my fire career and this now. This absolute, if there's nothing on the radio, I haven't heard anything for a few minutes or 5 minutes or whatever, I am habitually, look at my frequency, look at my volume, pull the squelch, make sure we're all good. So
it's a great tip. Yeah. Why is it quiet? That should be part of your checklist because you're flying for a while.
Quiet radios are now a watch out situation to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really good. And all these stories, all these mistakes we make.
So here I want to show you guys on screen like this 15-minute check. I don't know if you guys ever joined the CFI study group. It's like the CFI boot camp. It's you can see the FAA webinar series, and they do something weekly. But I listen in pretty much every once in a while. But there's this en-route checklist that a lot of these guys recommend, and it's kind of like a 15-minute scan. And I think that this kind of falls into that category too, right? We're just kind of checking our fuel, making sure we don't have any leaks. But if it's been quiet, if we get that 15-minute habitual scan, we can kind of check those frequencies, check those radios, make sure that we are in the right place. And it may not, we may just be in an area that's quiet. I mean, I've flown in North Carolina in the boonies. I mean, it was just quiet for a long time, right? I mean, there's just not a lot going on. So doing that 15-minute scan and then checking your engine, checking your gauges, confirming electrical's good and everything's charging. Direction indicators, making sure that we're gauged and we're aligned in our indicator. And then making sure our altimeter's set to the current setting. And this is more airplane stuff as you travel long distances, but just kind of that good routine 15-minute check, which includes radios, which is why I wanted to bring that in here. Sweet. That was fun. Anybody else have anything else they'd like to add? Well, those that are new here, thanks for joining. Encourage you guys to put together a lesson plan on any task from the ACS or any topic or subject that you want to maybe learn more about and become more proficient on, this is a great way to do it. Join this helicopter pilot study group and use this platform to present. I'm really lucky enough. There's not a lot of people presenting in these study groups, so I see the opportunity to fill in the gaps, and I take them and I make a lesson plan. It just increases my knowledge and helps my presenting skills. So I like the opportunity to do it, but I certainly encourage anybody else. We can usually get one or two, easily two presentations in an hour and a half. We've gone as much as 3 hours in the study group. So yeah, spread the word. Create a lesson plan. I know Tio's on the docket. He's going to get us one here. He's going to send me a time when he can do that. But yeah, take this opportunity to present your lesson plans. It'll help you on your CFI check ride. It'll make you more confident in becoming a teacher and teaching lesson plans. So unless anybody else has anything else to say, we've been an hour and 20 minutes in. Any
All right.
thoughts?
I can do you want to do a informal cherry thing real quick?
Let's save it.
Cherry drying. You want to save it?
Yeah, let's save it. We need topics. So maybe that'll give you a little bit of time to put maybe a few slides together too. But are you open to next week?
Next week's going to be a little crazy because
That's cool.
it's going to be a travel day. That's why I wanted to maybe do the story time now, unless people just want to quit, or that way it'll get me out of it and get me thinking about it.
Yeah, what about like the Thursday, the 30th or the 31st?
That might be better. I'll be back in Florida, so
Okay.
I can kind of come up with something,
Good.
put some pictures, and yeah, we can do that.
Yeah,
for sure.
awesome. Yeah, take some pictures. Give us a nice, thorough presentation. I'm excited to hear about that. We have my buddy Wes at Papillon is going to jump on and teach us about a day in the life of a Grand Canyon tour pilot. What is that like?
Well, technically, Jay could teach you about that because he worked at Papillon.
Oh yeah.
Where didn't you work, Jimmy? He worked everywhere.
It was a long time ago. I'm really excited to watch that one. I see how things have changed a fair bit. There was another company down there when I was down there, and yeah, I'm looking forward to that one too. And the cherry update.
And the cherry update. Yeah, really excited about that too. And then we've got Jerry Trimble here. We've got Tio lined up, and yeah, anybody, Andy, Flying Handlebar, whoever, please feel free to spread the word. Make a lesson plan and present it. Thank you guys for joining. Unless there's anything else, we'll sign off. Take care, everybody.